Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the My Rounding monthly webinar series. I do want to remind you that all attendee lines are on mute. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, please ask them through the questions panel on the right-hand side. Also available on the right-hand side in the handouts panel are going to be a copy of these slides, as well as the full curriculum PDF that you might have already downloaded. These links will also be included in the follow-up email tomorrow if you do miss them. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to walk you through why we created a video curriculum for rounding process. We're going to talk you through what we hope that you'll get out of it, how to use it, how to access it. If you haven't already downloaded the curriculum materials, the full curriculum PDF is available in the handouts panel, as I just mentioned. Or if you go onto our website, you can download the full curriculum, which includes individual PDFs of each resource, which I will walk you through here in a little bit. Now I want to welcome our presenters for today. My name is Katie Anthony. I'm the marketing manager for My Rounding, as well as your host for today. I also put together many of these curriculum materials, so I'm going to be walking you through some of the logistics of it. Also joining me is Michael Niederhauser, Nicole Wagger, and Kristen Salvatore. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would. Thanks, Katie. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Niederhauser, and I am the Vice President of Customer Experience. I've had the pleasure of seeing many different people round in both positive and areas for improvement sorts of ways. So this session that we pulled together today really is a culmination of a lot of work. Really excited to be here, and actually have a little bit of a kudos for Katie as well as Nicole for actually starring in some of these videos as well. So pleasure to be here. Excited to give you a resource that you can hopefully utilize immediately to make an impact in your organizations.
Thank you, Michael. This is Nicole Wagger, everybody. I would also like to send that kudos right back to you for also being in these videos. My background is nursing. I've been a nurse for over 14 years, and I am the Customer Experience Clinical Advisor here at My Rounding. And Kristen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kristen Salvatore. I've been with My Rounding for almost 3 years now, bring a plethora of experience with clients across the country. I'm looking forward to sharing some stories and these awesome videos today.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us. I'm really excited to introduce this curriculum, and I hope that it's really beneficial for everybody on the line. And so now that you do know who we are, we wanted to get a sense of who you are on the phone. So if you wouldn't mind, just take a second and fill out whichever organizational role you most closely align with. So we'll give you a few seconds here to fill that out. It looks like we are getting some votes in. The large majority of people on the phone thus far are department managers, which does not actually surprise us at all. It's pretty standard. You know, a lot of the people who are going to be using some of these training materials, I would think, are going to be managers. So as we're giving you a few more seconds to fill this out, we have about, thus far, 6% executive leadership, about 65% department managers, and about 29%, non-staff or consultant roles. It looks like most of you has voted, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. And there you can see the results there, just to get a sense of who's on the line with you.
All right. So thank you for providing that poll, and thank you for letting us know who you are. The purpose of today's webinar is to review our free best practice rounding training resources. You know, to help leaders become effective when rounding, we created this free rounding curriculum. And we're going to start by giving you a quick taste of one of the training videos.
All right, great. So we're going to play this video, and hopefully you all can hear the sound, and if not, you're going to get links to the videos later on.
Hi, Rick. Do you mind if I come in?
Sure.
Hi, Rick.
Hi.
My name is Nicole, and I'm the nurse leader here at My Rounding.
Hi.
I was wondering if I could just take about 5 minutes of your time and ask you a couple questions about your care here.
Sure.
We really want to make sure that we're providing the best care possible.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So I do want to sit down, and I see that there's not a stool here. Do you mind if I go run and grab one real quick?
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. All right, and is this okay?
That's fine.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So like I said, my name's Nicole, and I'm the nurse leader here at my rounding hospital. And I'm here to make sure that you're getting the best care possible. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just ask you a couple of questions, and I'm going to record your answers here using this tool, okay?
Fantastic. Wow. Well, that's a good snippet. We'll obviously go into a lot more detail in a moment, but first, it's important to take a step back and consider why we created this curriculum in the first place. Really, what we were hoping to do through this process is create an industry resource, something for you to utilize. We've also seen many great ways of rounding and many ways that perhaps could use some improvement. And so we really are trying to create this resource to enable purposeful rounding, where we're focused on people and supported by technology. I think one of the biggest barriers that we see with rounding using technology is the perceived barrier of that iPad, of that computer. And we focused really hard here in these videos to show how the technology is not only not a barrier, but it reinforces what is actually happening with the interactions with our patients. So, Kristen, I know that you've had an opportunity to travel all around the states and seen many different examples of positive rounding as well as areas for improvement. I wonder if you could just share a quick story on why you think we've created this and how it might be useful.
Yeah, I have a perfect example from an on-site when I was shadowing some rounders at a hospital in California. We watched a nurse run through her first round, and she went through the list of questions within about 2 minutes and thought she had completed a great round. She had documented everything, answered the questions, that sort of thing. And the nurse trainer actually stayed back after the nurse completed that round to ask the patient just one follow-on question. And the patient opened up about their anxiety, about their discharge, and their at-home care. Ultimately, there was a big difference in what each rounder took away based on the conversation they had with the patient, which was largely due to the focus of the round and the questions that they asked.
Gosh, so there's a lot of things going on there. First of all, I think it's incredible that this organization had an opportunity to have a trainer there able to shadow a resource, provide that feedback, and then help to get that additional information. We know that's not possible in every single hospital out there. So we're thinking of these training materials, these video curriculum, as that opportunity to help to supplement with some of those key components. The other thing that I think is really fascinating about this is that one additional question likely was not part of the script. And this, a lot of the times we hear about a difference in, well, we're rounding, but how come we're not seeing our HCAHPS move? This is a great example where if you're going through the motions, you might be asking the questions, but are you really getting to the concerns? And that's where having a conversation is critically important here. Well, that gives you a little bit of an idea around why we've created these materials. Let's talk a little bit about what your team will get out of these.
You know, this curriculum was created leveraging 20 years of industry experience. These best practice rounding methods focus on creating a connection with the patient, on rounding with a purpose, which is to learn what we can do to provide an exceptional experience for all of our patients. We provide examples of what a typical round might look like versus a purposeful round. And you know, when I'm teaching this curriculum on site, I always see that aha moment on people's faces after they watch the videos. We have to remember why we are rounding and how our behaviors can either deter or engage the patient and the conversation. Now, Kristen, I know you had an experience when you presented this training on site in New Jersey. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I showed these videos a few months back in New Jersey, and the room was full of experienced rounders. If I would have said, can I train you guys? They would have said, we're good. I don't need any of this. We know what we're doing. However, when the poor version was playing, it was vocalized throughout the room that they've either done those things or seen others round in the poor manner. These videos make it that much easier for the rounders to see how they can improve their rounding to be more like the best practice with these visual aids.
Great, Kristen. That's a wonderful example. Katie, why don't you tell us about the different videos that are available?
I would love to, Nicole. So we developed a few different rounding scenarios that we wanted to take people through. So the majority of these are best practice versions or those purposeful rounds that Kristen just talked about. Each of these 5 has a purposeful round associated with them. And then the first 2 also do have a pour or an opportunity for improvement video. So within these, we wanted the inpatient nurse leader round to be used as kind of a foundational video. This is the most complete video. It walks through from Nicole realizing that she needs to conduct her rounds, going through some of those rounds to refresh herself before she goes out there, coaching in with Michael, going through the round and coaching out. The other rounds, the ED round, the pediatric and family round, and the physician office round do not actually walk through those kind of base or foundational steps because they are very repetitive and we wanted to be respectful of your training time. So know that the inpatient nurse leader round is the foundational round that is the most complete. So if you want to go through the whole process, that's the video to start with. We also do recommend that you go through the poor videos before the good videos, just because it sets it up so that the trainees can associate and relate to them a little bit better. As Kristen was mentioning, the poor video really highlights what they've seen people do, and then the good video follows up and encourages them to do it in a slightly different way, just to get a little bit more impact. So to see the example of those, we're going to go through just I think they're about 30 seconds each, a clip from a poor version and a good version of the same video, so that you can see the difference that just a little bit of purposeful rounding can add to the same conversation.
And has your nurse, Michael, communicated well with you?
Michael's been great. He was telling me about how my shoulder was going to heal and how to change dressing. My wife came in, he stopped, started from the beginning again, explained everything to her. So she's probably going to be the one that's changing the dressing.
Right.
And then he told this joke, and I called my wife this morning. She's still laughing about it. Michael's been great.
That's so great. I mean, I hope the joke was appropriate.
All right, so that was the poor version. And now let's see pretty much that same conversation in the best practice light.
But you know, one of the best parts of my job is to be able to recognize our staff members for going above and beyond. And is there anyone who's just gone above and beyond to take extra special care of you while you've been here?
Michael, he's been fantastic. He was explaining to me how it's going to heal and how to change the dressing. My wife came in. He stopped, started at the beginning, explaining everything so she would understand it as well. Then he told us a joke, and I swear I called her this morning. She's still laughing.
Oh my gosh, Michael is quite the jokester. He's always cracking up the nurses at the nurses station.
All right. So hopefully you could see a few of those differences in there from the way that she actually interacted with the patient, Rick, how prepared she was, and also how she handled the situation about Michael telling a joke. In the first version, you know, she wanted to make sure that it was appropriate, which didn't necessarily set the right tone. Whereas in the second version, she made sure to manage up Michael and put it in a positive light.
I don't know if there's any Academy Award nominations up for this, but at least it gets the point across.
That's right.
Katie, do we have a poll now just to dive into this a little bit further?
We do. Okay, so now that we've walked through kind of the basics of this training, we wanted to find out how you are currently training your rounders, if you actually have a training that you're offering or not, if this is kind of the foundation for you to jump off from. Go ahead and take a few seconds to fill that out. It looks like thus far it's about 50-50 between a basic training is provided versus no training is being provided.
And it looks like we're centering in here again, right there at about 50% of folks provide basic training. 18% it looks like kind of, and 36% no, we don't provide any sort of thing. The glaring thing here is the robust curriculum is 0%. There are opportunities now to utilize any resources we can possibly get to build upon something we know is important. And that goes back to the why we created all of this. So I think that we now have a good idea, a much better idea of the need that's out there. And it sounds like, pleasantly enough, the right people are on this call. So let's really get into now, Katie, how for those of you that don't have a training curriculum might create one. And for those of you that do have one, how you might use the materials we have here to enhance one.
Great, thanks, Michael. So real quick, I'm just going to jump into how to access the materials that we've provided. So we built this out to be a very robust resource for you to use and really customize to fit whatever training situation that you're in, or to fit within a training curriculum that you might already offer, just to expand upon it a little bit. So in that right-hand side in the handouts panel, you will get the full curriculum PDF that's on the left-hand side of the screen. That includes all of the different resources that are provided in the zip file that you would download from our website. Unfortunately, GoToWebinar does not allow me to upload zip. But within this, you get all of the worksheets, quizzes, answers, different discussion questions that we do have within the curriculum. And we'll walk through those in a second here. If you did download the zip file from our website, you'll see that all of the different resources are also broken out into different individual PDFs. So we really wanted to just make this really accessible and able for you to be able to print out whatever materials you need in that moment. So for example, you could, if you were going to train on that inpatient nurse leader round, you could either go into resources by round and click on the inpatient nurse leader round folder, and then you're going to have a worksheet PDF and a quiz PDF, etc. Or you could go down to the resources by type folder, and in there you're going to see a worksheets folder with each worksheet individually saved out as a PDF, each quiz individually saved out as a PDF. So hopefully this is really accessible for you, so that if you do just want to go in and click and print out a quick worksheet, you're going to be able to go in and do that very quickly.
Katie, I like that. So it sounds like we've got a very broad approach in the Effective Rounding 101, but additional very specific materials to specific needs of a certain type of round if they should need it.
Sure, yeah, and I do want to emphasize that they are the same materials,
sure,
presented in a different way.
Great.
So within each one of those, for each of these videos, we have a worksheet answer, post-video discussion questions, quizzes, and quiz answers. We also have additional materials provided in there that are really meant to be used as refresher materials, or materials to be able to hang up in the nurse's area or in a break room. So this includes, so this is how we do it, infographic poster, which you can hang up. This is included within the zip file or within that full curriculum PDF, as well as the Going Beyond the Infographic ebook, also included in this package. We do also have additional materials on our website in our resources library, including the Effective Rounding Templates poster and ebook, which really break down how to formulate a solid round, what questions you should or maybe should be avoiding to ask, and really how to drill those down into getting what you want out of the round.
I have to say really quickly, this is how we do it poster is probably one of the biggest hits when we bring it on site. People love this, post it all over the hospital, especially in those units that are trying to get their rounding up to the next level, as just a helpful key reminder. So these graphics are very, very helpful for folks working on their training efforts and purposeful rounding.
Great point, Kristen. All right, so accompanying all of these printed materials or support materials, we also have all of those videos that we've shown you little clips of thus far. So the biggest question that we've probably received is how to best access these videos. And we've tried to make these available in a number of different places to make it really easy for you to access, especially depending on your IT requirements. So we do have them on YouTube as playlists and individual videos, but we know that a lot of healthcare organizations actually can't access YouTube, that it's blocked within their system. So we've also uploaded these to a site called Brightcove. It's exactly the same as YouTube, where it hosts our videos, but it's not blocked by nearly as many IT systems.
And Katie, just real quick, the videos that are embedded in our website actually are the ones on Brightcove. So they don't need to go to that site. They can just go to myrounding.com and access the videos from there. Is that right?
Exactly, Michael. So if you go to myrounding.com, in the top blue bar, in the very middle, you're going to see rounding resources. If you drop that down, you'll see the video library. And that's where all of these are housed on that Brightcove platform. So hopefully it's really easily accessible by you and also viewable. All right, so now that we've walked through some of the basics of how to access these training curriculums and a little bit into how to launch them in your own organization, we're going to do another quick poll, and that is, how do you see yourself using this toolkit and this curriculum? So we'll give you a few seconds to fill that out.
You know, gut instinct is usually the right instinct. So just do whatever you think based on the information you've seen thus far. Take a moment and cast your vote. And we'll use this information to inform the rest of our presentation as well. So appreciate taking a moment to complete the polls.
And this is a multi-select poll, so you can select multiple answers because we know that it isn't necessarily going to be only used for one situation, and we really hope that you are utilizing this for a variety of different use cases. So it looks like most people have voted, but there's still a few votes coming in. Thus far, we have about half of the base here will be using it for staff refreshers. About half will be using it for staff as an initial training. About 65% using it for new user orientation. That's a great use for it. And then a few that will use it in the classroom session, and a few that will use it in a professional on-site situation as well.
Nice. Well, as we wrap this poll response up, Katie, I think the key thing is that there is no wrong way to use it if you're using it at all. With that said, let's continue on to the next section, Katie, and I'd really like to dive into now some more specific ways to use the curriculum and the videos. Could you take us through a couple of those items as we've seen them laid out?
Sure, Michael. So real quick, jumping in here, we've talked about there being multiple different versions of each video, and that's through the good and the poor iteration. But we also have two different versions for each of those videos that we're calling the group training version and the self-guided version. Now, these are the exact same videos, but just used for different training situations. So the group training version does not have those little blue captions that you see in the lower left-hand corner of that right video. That pops in with different tips. So the group version is really used to help your group critically think and identify what the caption should have said, really just to spur discussion, make them come up with their own answers, get the conversations rolling. However, we also realize that there are going to be situations, especially those new user orientations, where you might be having somebody go through it on their own, or maybe it's a refresher. So we've introduced those little captions into the lower left-hand side, and those just have some tips throughout it. So introduce technology. There's some in there about managing up, about aid it, about coaching in and out, etc. So those are really just used as helpful hints going through those videos, either on your own or in a group training version without those, just to spur dialogue.
Katie, I had a thought as well. I mean, a neat way to use this in a group training session might be to view the one without captions, have a discussion, perhaps even take the quiz, and then come back and view the one with captions and see how we did, and gives that additional reinforcement. So highlighting again, I think the flexibility, we've made some suggestions on how you might use these. It's up to you how you make the most of them, but we do have guidelines. So trying to get you 80% of the way there, and that last 20%, and you can innovate as your team needs.
Those are great points, Michael. And we do have the worksheets and the quizzes, as well as the discussion questions, to help you customize your curriculum and your experience as well. All right. So then we've also talked about the good versus poor versions. And so within the self-guided versions that we just talked about, with those little tips in the lower left-hand corner, you are going to see blue captions, which are best practices, and then orange versions, which are opportunities for improvement. So again, just a visual way to help call out to your trainees what they should or maybe shouldn't be doing, or where they could improve in this situation. now that we've walked through some of the basics of this training curriculum, Nicole, could you walk us through how to optimize the training?
Absolutely, Katie. You know, let's say that we have 10 leaders rounding, and 3 of those leaders are exceptional. You know, they go in, they make that connection with the patient, they round with purpose, they understand why we're doing this. And then we have 5 that are good, you know, they go in, they do the rounds, they answer all the questions, and then, you know, the rest of them, well, they need some improvement. We aimed this training curriculum to help move those mid-performers or the rounders who are good up to exceptional. You know, this is very similar technique to how we move HCAPs up. Kristen, do you want to explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so one of the things we do when we work with our hospitals to figure out which questions for them to focus on within their rounding, we typically like to have them talk about which domains are closest to threshold or have the ability to improve just slightly to get to that next level. It's much easier to move a good to exceptional than a poor to exceptional. So we're going to focus on training rounders the same way.
Thanks, Kristen. You know, this training curriculum is designed to be used in a variety of settings, as we said, and one way is through group training, which creates a more collaborative approach, and leaders get to learn and share with each other. Group trainings also ensure that everyone is following the same initiative. You know, everyone approaches rounding the same way with the same goal in mind. But we all know that it can be difficult to get all the leaders together in the same room. So we've also provided this program as a self-learning module for those who aren't able to make the group training. And then a great way to make sure that nobody falls between the cracks is to make sure that we're providing this training to new leaders during the orientation process. And, you know, what's nice about this training curriculum is that it's easily designed so that your facilities educators can provide the training. However, My Rounding offers professional on-site training. One of our certified leaders will visit your facility, provide an assessment of your current workflow, advise how to best optimize My Rounding, and then train to the initiatives and set goals. Kristen, why don't you explain a little bit how to utilize our technology for the curriculum?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite parts, teaching people to utilize our technology. So there are 2 great enhancements to your training efforts that you can put into My Rounding. We have quizzes and we have validation rounds. We created quizzes which can easily be added into My Rounding. The value of adding them into the tool is that they provide your users with additional practice time within the tool. I've conducted numerous training sessions to experienced My Rounding users. I already told you one story, but they always have questions when they have an expert there with them. So this could be the perfect opportunity for them to learn how to use My Rounding more effectively. The other piece are validation rounds. We've created validation rounds as a way to ensure your training methods are still being practiced 3, 6, 12 months after your training session. I have several hospitals that have incorporated them into their workflow, and they've had really great success. I always hear really wonderful stories about how they've incorporated validation rounds. They typically call them shadow rounding or buddy rounding, and it's a great way to make them more team focused, and using the validation round in My Rounding as a guide can be a great resource to keep rounding as purposeful as possible.
That's great. Well, that's a lot of information, and luckily we're just coming right up against time. So just wanted to recap quickly here. This is a free resource for you to utilize however you think it can best be utilized. If you have questions, certainly reach out to us here. We're very passionate about this, and Katie will talk about how to get in touch with us in a moment. In short, what we're trying to do is create these resources to help rounding really be person-focused and technology-supported, so that we can really create and sustain that positive change that we're looking for throughout the organization. So please utilize these. They're free for your use. And if you have feedback, questions, or suggestions, we want to hear all of that. Your engagement is critical to the future development of these materials, and we appreciate so much you taking the time on this. Katie, do you mind wrapping us up?
I would love to. Thanks, Michael. And thank you all for jumping on the call with us today. We really hope that this has been beneficial for you. And the curriculum is providing you materials that you will utilize within your own training program. We do want to mention that if you have additional questions, first off, you can be asking them in the questions box on that right-hand side. I've seen a few questions already come in. Please keep them coming. And then if you do have additional questions beyond the webinar today, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@myrounding.com or to your account manager if you are a current client, which we see quite a few of you on the line, which is fantastic. I also wanted to remind you that these slides and a copy of the full curriculum PDF are available in the handouts panel on the right-hand side. And a recording of this webinar will be available on myrounding.com/blog tomorrow, or a link will be emailed to you in a follow-up email communication, along with the links to these resources that we provided. Now, when you close the webinar window, you will be prompted to take a short survey. Please take a couple of minutes to provide us with feedback to help us improve our webinars in the future. And also, we've asked a question on there about if there are any of those specific rounding videos that you would like us to deep dive into on a webinar. And finally, check back to our website for future ebooks and webinars. We're producing resources all the time. We produce approximately one ebook a month, and those are always up on our website under the resources tab under ebooks. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. And there have been quite a few questions that have come in already. So let's dive in. And the first one is, do the videos interface with other training platforms such as NetLearning?
So the videos are publicly available, and you can link to the videos from any number of areas. Now, you can actually embed the videos as well in your e-learning tools. It might require some assistance from IT to actually get the embedding of those videos, but they are publicly available. And so really, it's up to you and your team how you can integrate these, and again, how much customization you have over your e-learning tools.
Great. All right, and let's see here. We have another question on the best way to engage with these videos with leadership. I know that we touched on this a little bit, but could you deep dive a little bit onto how to use them with leaders specifically?
One quick way that comes to mind, the employee engagement round, that's a critical one. And that's not limited to frontline staff. Everyone in the organization can get benefits out of engaging their staff in the right way. And I think that direct report round that we have is a great example of showing the quality of the content we have and the message as well. And I think that that's a great way to introduce the topics with people and help to get buy-in as well.
I would also say that for our most successful hospitals with improving their HCAHPS scores and really making rounding a priority, they have leaders at all levels rounding. So even the nurse leader rounding on inpatient is applicable to every level of someone who would be rounding on a patient. It focuses on those best practices regardless of whether you're a charge nurse or the CNO. So I think those are applicable across the board.
Great. Here's another question about how often you should be training your employees, or I guess refreshing them.
That's a great question. There's lots of different schools of thought on this. I think the fact of the matter is most locations, as we saw in our poll earlier today, are not training at all. So anything is better than that. I think in the ideal world, we would have an onboarding training and then quarterly refreshers, and then perhaps even an annual certification to where if people aren't passing certain measures, we can actually go back and create action plans around that. But again, the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, we understand how time limited training is, and it unfortunately falls to the bottom of the list. So if we can get even self-guided sessions using these materials, that's a big win over what we have currently.
Michael, you mentioned maybe having this as an annual training, and I know a lot of hospitals do annual training with all of their nurses on skills, just to make sure that nurses are up to date on their skills. And this could just be added to that training process to make sure that leaders are up to date and know how to properly round.
I like that because it's utilizing an existing training and adding one additional component on. And I think we could all agree that rounding is a very important skill to have in the clinical world, in addition to all of the clinical skills.
I would also say that one of my hospitals has been really successful with those validation rounds, and adding those to your regular rounding program can help kind of reinforce and further your training efforts to last longer than they would without that constant reinforcement.
Great point.
Great. All right, it looks like those might be the only questions that have been asked thus far. If you do have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us either at info@myrounding.com or again to your account manager, and we'll make sure to get those questions answered very quickly. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do hope that this was beneficial and that this helps you kind of kick off a lot of your training programs or make your current training program a little bit more robust. We have a great day, and we hope to see you again next month or for our next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.